Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network present the Discover Your Mission series.
When I was young, in the 1950s, I attended Catholic grammar school and I memorized the Baltimore Catechism. In fact, I think I got an A on all of my tests. I faithfully attended Mass each week, not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid if I didn't, I would suffer eternal damnation. I followed all the rules. I followed my Catholic faith faithfully. But it wasn't until I became a wife and a mother and I began to try and pass my faith on to my children that I realized that everything I knew about Jesus was memorized doctrine.
I can't even share with you how I was so rooted in my faith. And I was attending Mass, but I was not present. I was a good man, I was a good father, I was instilling the sacraments into my family. I was definitely not intentional. I was stuck rooted in my faith.
But what kind of strength did he have? Jackie did not just have a strength of body or baseball skill. He had a strength inside of his spirit, a courageous meekness that empowered him to play the game.
And I tell him what is going on with me, and he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, I think this is like some sort of miracle, dude. And he's like, okay, of course, but I'll believe it when I see it. Honey, you've been trying to quit, and you've been saying this and saying that. And I'm his big line to me is, you shouldn't say things because I never follow through on them. And so this was week after week, month after month. He is looking at me like, this is a miracle. There is no way that you, on your own, could have done this.
In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 16 through 21, St. Paul compares the sacrifice of the Christians to the sacrifice of Israel and then to the sacrifice of the pagans. Paul calls the chalice the blood of Christ, and the bread as participation in the body of Christ, and then warns his listeners that you cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons at the same time. So in other words, you need to decide, what are you going to participate in? Are you going to participate in the historic Christian idea of the altar of sacrifice, which is in the Eucharist, or not?
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. And good morning, or good evening, everybody, I should say. Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. Just woke up from a nap, which is the reason why it feels like it is morning here. But no, it is evening in Wisconsin. And we are just so blessed to be here on another beautiful day here in Wisconsin. So thank you all for joining us on the Sowing Hope podcast. And Ann, how are you today?
Oh, I'm great. You put a big smile on my face when you said good morning. I just almost laughed out loud because it's like 6 o'clock here
Yes.
in the evening in Philadelphia. So hi,
Yeah.
Bill. Hi to our guest, Brian. And I know that you'll announce Brian.
Yeah, but we have a wonderful guest with us tonight. His name is Brian Caley. And Brian is a Catholic blogger. He is also the founder of the Behold Project, and the blog is thebeholdproject.com. And it's just a fascinating, it's probably one of the most amazing Catholic blogs out there in this blogosphere, I guess is the official term or whatever they call it. So, Brian, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for joining us on Sowing Hope.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We always like to get started with the journey of faith because on this program, because it just is kind of our staple and kind of what we do. So, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your personal journey and walk with the Lord, and just share with us a little bit about that.
Well, to start at the beginning, I was a cradle Catholic. My mom had a strong Catholic background. My father was don't quite remember what he was at this point, but it was definitely not practicing. So we had that growing up, went to Catholic school, went to Catholic church, etc. And then it was kind of a lukewarm sort of thing. It wasn't a super strong faith because we didn't go like as often as we should have. But something happened when I was in high school. My father passed away from a cerebral aneurysm when I was in freshman year, and I fell to the dark side of things. I was a pseudo-satanic, wearing black, listening to music. I blasphemed. I did all kinds of not nice things. It was not a nice place to be, but that's where I was at the time. But thankfully, eventually that faded away, and I became just a full-blown atheist when I joined the military after my senior year, and didn't have much of a practicing anything for a while. And then I got deployed to Iraq in 2004 by no small coincidence. Started to feel the pangs of the Lord out in the desert, thinking that there were, maybe there is something to this. Just talking to different people of different faiths and talking to chaplains of the faith and saying, maybe there is something to this and I'm just not seeing it. So that really started my journey of faith back, so to speak. Then a couple of years after that, I received a letter from a non-denominational church with my dead father's name on it, strangely enough. And I took that as a sign from something somewhere that this was where I wanted to be, and I had to be. So I did that for a couple of years. I was a non-denominational Catholic, started to coming back towards the faith slowly but surely. Then a few years after that, I met my lovely wife, Ruth, who is a Lutheran. Strong practicing faith there. So I joined her particular faith, coming ever so closer back to the traditional church. And then a few years into that, things just started to get really bad again. And I had a suicide attempt. And that was, I'd hit rock bottom of things, and I cried. And it was at that point I cried out to the Lord, hey, something has to give here because I'm on the path of destruction again, and things needed to change somewhere. So a few months after that, there is a holy shrine about an hour south of me called the Grotto of Lourdes. It's a replica of the Grotto of Lourdes in France. So in the dead of winter, I drove down there, trudged up there in the ice and snow, and threw myself before this large stone cross they have at the top of the hill. And I said, okay, Lord, here I am. Make of me what you will, but I don't want to do this anymore. And I swear to both of you, as sure as I am sitting here with this microphone on, something left me that day, and I have not tried to commit suicide since. And
Wow.
A few months after that, I came in contact with a Facebook group called Catholics with Depression. And I fell in love with my Catholic faith all over again. Just the amount of love and support, and the fact that I could tell them everything that's happened and no, you're not crazy. This is part of your journey. And I jumped 2 feet first back into the Catholic faith, found a lovely church, read all the books I could. I have a rosary. I've adopted a patron in Shade Sarabel Malikoff. And I started writing the Behold Project as a sort of a thank you to God, saying, this is me giving back, because I understand that, yes, my mental illness is here. It's part of my definition, but it doesn't define me. And I can show my fellow Catholics that it doesn't have to be this way, that there is joy to be found, and that God and Mother Mary especially love and accept you. And that's me in a nutshell.
It's a great, amazing story, isn't it, Dan? It's just incredible.
Oh my gosh, it is. And you and I, Brian, have been social media friends for a while, and so it's a blessing to connect with you here and have you on the podcast. And it means so much to me, Bill and Brian, when we can host guests that that really experience Christ in a special way, where they're picked up out of their misery and shown the love of God. Because all of us, I think, I could be wrong, but I do think all of us have been there at some point, maybe not to an extreme, but all of us have been to a point where we don't feel God's presence in our lives, and we question, why are all these terrible things happening, and why do I feel the way I feel? So it's just a wonderful thing for us to have you on this podcast, because we say we're sowing hope into broken hearts, and that's what Sowing Hope is all about. So thank you so much for being our guest, Brian.
Oh, thanks again for having me. It's a real joyful thing to be able to share this from a point of view of saying, I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, etc.
Yeah, got the T-shirt. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So you said something at the beginning of your story where I think it's a big wake up call to our culture and to all of us who have kids or people who are really in that dark place, that there is a decision to be made between evil and good. And I think when you were a teenager, you said that you got to that point where you were going on a path with the evil one. So maybe you could tell us about that, as far as like, how did that happen and how did you get out of it?
Well, I fell in with the wrong crowd at the Catholic school that I went to, which you would think that would be a strange place to find people like that. But yeah, they're more prevalent than you may think. So it started really there, following in with the wrong crowd and just kind of aping what they were doing, listening to music that wasn't productive and thinking it was okay to blaspheme and rail against God and do not nice things and say not nice things. And that, yes, and evil is definitely existing. It is palpable, and nothing good can come of it. It was just the proverbial downward spiral, and it only had one exit, which would be either me in jail or me committing suicide. So yeah, that is definitely a choice that needs to be made for not just teenagers, but for all of us. That, yeah, evil is attractive. It looks good when you're in a certain mindset, but it's just not healthy for you or anyone in your circle.
Yeah. It's so refreshing, to hear you kind of cut through the darkness like that. I think in a lot of circles, when we start talking about evil, sometimes we make a whole lot of gray lines. We like to paint in gray and all different colors, and on some level there is a black and a white, and we can fall into the trap of beginning with something small, like you mentioned, like listening to the wrong music, hanging out with the wrong people, and those little things end up having an impact that lasts throughout somebody's life and even along their journey. If we give evil an inch, it takes a yard, right? I mean, that's just how Satan works. and so it's so refreshing to hear you be able to, on the recovery end of things, be able to say, all right, look, you know what, there's going to be a point, and there can be a point in your story where it finally went from dark gray to black. That there's no more white in there. There's no more purity in it. And I think that that's a very refreshing part of your story, and a very, or at least or a refreshing part of your message, I should say, for us today. And I think the other thing that is so prevalent in your story, Brian, is the fact that you talk about mental health. And your entire blog is the Behold Project is a Catholic mental health ministry. That's what it is. And maybe if you can talk a little bit about how your journey has helped you realize that you're fully Catholic, and even though you've had all these twists and turns in your story, it's okay to have mental health issues and still be a practicing Catholic. Like, that's okay, right?
Well, it's definitely the case. I've read several books by several different people that say, it's not only is it okay, but it's something good can come of whatever mental health issue you have going on. You have, I wouldn't say a responsibility, but you have the ability to try to make something better and try to make it for other people to say, it's okay to be depressed. It's okay not to be okay. God still loves you anyway. And I personally believe the Blessed Mother in the guise of the Lady of Sorrows is very, very close to the brokenhearted, the ones that feel disenfranchised, and the ones that feel like mental health is holding them back from the church, because as our mother, she wants us to feel close to her and close to her son, point the way to her son and say, this is really how it is. Don't listen to the evil one. Don't listen to the world. This is how it is. And through my blog, I try to hit that message home because, there's still so many people that feel lost and disenfranchised, and they feel like the church doesn't care about them, and nothing could be further from the truth.
So
yeah,
well
you
said.
said it perfectly. Thank you. It is an issue that's very close to my heart. And I'll admit that within my family, and even for myself, I mean, I've dealt with these kinds of issues of, feeling the pain of the evil of the world, feeling the pain of certain kinds of personalities in the world that make you feel apart from God. We have power, pleasure, and I forget what the other P, right? Power, pleasure, and is it prestige? I don't know. Those three elements of life that people kind of, popularity, that's what it is. Power, pleasure, and popularity that people try to strive after. And if you're a person who you've struggled with those kinds of things where you're with people who there is that competition element, and you feel like you're never going to really win with these people, you're never going to win in the world because God's rules are much different than the rules of the Lord, right? And the rules of heaven. And until we really turn around and realize that this is not the right way to care what certain individuals think about us, or trying to compete in some way to be popular or prestigious or have some kind of pleasure in our lives, it's not the way to heaven.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. I actually had this discussion with someone the other day on Facebook because they had someone with my type of issues, someone that was quote unquote full of God, that was telling them, oh, you're just not praying hard enough. You need to pray to the Holy Spirit and everything will be fine. And I told them, it's not quite that simple. I think if it was a matter of faith, we would all be a lot better off, because a lot of us have come in faith to Christ and said, take this away from me, but for whatever reason that doesn't happen. And you have to figure, if that doesn't happen, that happens for a reason. I mean, even St. Paul had his thingy of the flesh that Jesus wouldn't take away. So if you figure something like that happens, it's for a reason. And that reason being, you have to relay whatever message God is relaying to you and say, it's okay to be like this. You're not heading for condemnation. You're not heading for whatever. It's not a lack of faith.
Yeah.
If anything,
Yeah.
it's there to strengthen your faith.
No, you said it perfectly. And I'm just amazed at your faith. And I think we need more people like you who have been there into a very, very, very dark place. I wondered if you could talk more, because we do probably have some people listening who might have kids, or maybe they themselves are in a dark place and they're tempted to go down more of that evil path where they say, heck with God, heck with faith. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to follow more of a sinful life. And I'm even going to worship the devil instead of worship God, because I'm sick and tired of what I see out there. You know what I'm saying? I know you
yes.
understand. So if you could have some words of advice there, why is this happening with some young people and even with some older people who are headed down this path of destruction? What happens in their brain and in their spirit that makes them think, you know what, I'm just done. I'm done.
Because evil by its nature is seductive and fits into what the world is offering. The evil says, you're right. The world is messed up. There's nothing you can do about it. You might as well just throw up your hands and say the hell with it. But that's not what we're called to do. If I could tell parents anything, it would be get involved with your kids. Know who they're talking to. Know what they're doing. Get involved with what it is. Culture their faith life, culture whatever it is, because you're going to be the influence that takes that away. If you can, by all means, try. If there's nothing else you can do but try. And if someone is listening to this that is feeling the grip of Satan and saying going down the same dark path that I was, I would say just, you have the strength to get away from it, and it's a lot better for you and everyone involved in your circle, and better for your soul on the other side of things. Just reject Satan and all his pomps and works. It's all smoke and mirrors. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your family. He doesn't care about your happiness. He just wants to drag you down into the fire and ice that is hell, and it's just not a good thing for you or anybody involved. So just take that step today. If it's a small step, that's great. Just do something, because destruction's the only thing that awaits you, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I love that line. I want to print it on a T-shirt. I wrote it down on my notes here. Satan doesn't care about you. What a great line. What a great line to say, because I think a lot of us think, this can be sin can be attractive, it can be fun, it can be those things on the surface, right? It can be that, but at the bottom line is he doesn't care about you, and he's got one thought in mind. He's got your destruction, and I absolutely love that. I'm glad it's so refreshing. Again, it's so refreshing to hear that. Come at it. It's wonderful to be able to hear that and know that, like, all right, in a world that has a lot of uncertainty and great and living with mental health issues, right? Living with diagnosable mental health issues, or diagnosed, I should say, mental health issues, that you can still choose in each moment and in each day, despite your weaknesses, despite your failings, despite the health issues that exist, you can still choose good. You can still choose holiness. You can still choose God in all of those circumstances. So, Brian, thank you for just painting some really nice lines that are drawn clear for people, because I think when but also compassionately. You have both of those things. You have the compassion because you've understood, going through this and understanding that the winding road is going to have ups and it's going to have a lot of downs, and those downs are sometimes what really make us stronger and able to see God more clearly, and also be able to help others up out of those pits.
Yeah, very much so. And the pit is definitely a great way to describe it, because you will not know just how far down you are until you're actually up out of that and you look back at it and you go, wow, that was really me at one point. I've done things I was not proud of. The first confession I went to after that was oh Lord. Yeah, I just let it all out and I said, yes, this is what I did. I'm not proud of it, but I need to confess it. And that's the wonderful thing, is that you cannot comprehend God's mercy for you. If you are willing to say, you know what, I reject these things and I want to come back, God's mercy is infinite. All you need to do is just reach out for it, and it's right there, and you can say, I feel much better. I confessed all that. I've been absolved from my sins. I'm going to go do my penance, whatever that may be, and can start on a different road of life. And that's a very important thing for your listeners, I think, to realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. Honestly, you're helping me personally. I think we're all the time. I don't care how much faith somebody has. I don't care if they go to daily mass all the time or say the rosary. We're all tempted to sometimes give up and say, I prayed and nothing happened, right? Or why isn't God listening to me? So it can happen to the best of us. It really can. It not just teenagers, not just people who are on drugs or doing certain things that are really away from their faith, right? I mean, so I think it's a good wake up call for all of us to say, evil exists, and there's going to be a temptation to give up. There's going to be a temptation to do things that are wrong. So I just commend you again, as Bill said, that you're able to talk about it and minister. So maybe just for us to become more educated on all of this, what's going on in the head of somebody who really is in an evil place? What is going on in their head where they're completely turning away from everything that they know is good and just saying, I don't care. I'm going this way. I don't want to pray. I don't want to go to church, and I don't really care about God or my faith anymore.
Well, in addition to not caring about you, Satan is also a bully. If you have those thoughts that, oh, I don't want to pray anymore, I don't want to, he's going to seize on that and be like, yeah, you're right, you don't want to. And he's going to kick you while you're down. He's going to say, yeah, your prayers are for naught. God doesn't care about you. He's just going to keep lying and heaping lies upon lies until they become your personal truth. Because as the old saying goes, you tell a lie long enough, people start to believe it, right? That's kind of what happens in the spiritual sense. You start believing that these lies, these untruths, and these half-truths are your reality, and they become your reality. And at the time you don't see any other way out of it, because you look at believers and people that are practicing the faith, and you're like, yeah, been there, done that, and it's all for naught. You're going to end up like me someday, and blah blah blah. And it's like I said, it's just not a good place to be, and it comes from a place usually of hurt, usually a place of just hate of whatever reason, hurt from something. Satan is the biggest bully in the history of reality. He will seize on any little foothold that you have and just keep kicking at it until something happens.
Yeah, no, that is so true. I got a question for you, because I think this is a place that leads people into evil. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I know even for myself, when I've been tempted to say, why did you not answer that prayer? a lot of it has to do with something that happened where some kind of bully in our own lives. It could have been somebody else. It could be a relative, somebody at school, somebody you worked with. It could even be somebody in the church. I hate to say it. It could be one of our religious or clergy members who said or did something that really, put you back and think, why did that person say or do that to me? Like, they had no right to say that. They had no right to do that. Do you think that's a place that leads people into that evil place? I think it does, but maybe you can clarify.
Oh, very much so. Unforgiveness is what you're looking to hit on there, and yeah, you cannot be a child of God, a person of God, if you're not willing to forgive. And I believe Satan will seize upon unforgiveness as well. Because for like when my father passed away, I blamed God, and Satan seized upon that and said, "You're right. Don't forgive God for what he did." And that became my reality. And that was just, I couldn't see past that. It took me many, many years later to realize, well, your father was smoking, drinking more coffee than he should have. Of course, he was going to, he was taking very poor care of himself. Of course, something was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. God didn't take him that in the literal sense. And it's, yeah, unforgiveness is definitely something that can lead to that. I can't really speak to anybody I know personally that has that particular thing going on, but yeah, I would imagine that would be a huge, huge thing. You have to be able to forgive even the major slights of life. It might take time, might take energy, might be a because forgiveness is not an overnight thing. It's it's a process. But I would imagine that, yeah, that would definitely be the case.
Good stuff. Brian, I kind of want to ask you as well about about your ministry because this uh, this ministry you have, the Behold Project, which the blog and website, thebeholdproject.com, for people who are wanting to read it. It really it first of all, it just turned a year old, right? It's just a year old.
Yeah, we just had a birthday on September 1st, so there was birthday cake. Yay.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
good. But it really is an amazing blog. I mean, I think it's one of the best blogs out there on the blogosphere, right? The Catholic blogosphere, and just talk with us a little bit about this ministry. And I mean, there's so many great articles and there's some great resources, and just talk about the community. It really is a community for people to come and experience the love of God through those if you're suffering with a mental health issue.
Well, the idea came to me a year and a couple of months ago while I was in Eucharistic adoration. Strangely enough, I credit Mother Mary with giving me the name for it because I'm not clever enough to come up with it myself. But it's, but yeah, it was definitely me trying to give back to things and trying to give my particular message of peace, hope, love, etc. out to the world. Admittedly, I am not the most prolific writer. I still got a lot of work to do there, but I do my best. I have a team of writers and a team of cheerleaders in the background that are saying, "Yeah, this is good stuff." And yeah, we just anything in particular that we think can be helpful, even if it's something like something about like the miracle of Fatima that happened a couple of months ago. I wrote a nice piece about that. Or I wrote a piece about my patron, Saint Charbel, that was posted on one of my friends' pages. Yeah, pretty much anything that comes to mind that I think would be a good piece to write. I'm my harshest critic. I'm like, no, that's not a good idea. Nah, no. Oh, this is a good idea. And thankfully, I have my lovely wife Ruth's support. She's in the other room. She can't hear me, but she knows I love her to death, and I have her support. And I couldn't do it without her. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to share just a little bit from your About Us page for people, if you don't mind. Just want to share a little bit
Please do,
Yeah,
Bill.
go for it.
from that, because I think people out there that are listening to this, the Holy Spirit makes divine appointments. So just if you're listening to this, just listen to a little bit of the what this is all about. So first of all, it says we're a growing group of Christians that have come to together to create a community. We'll be sharing blogs, testimonies, and anything else that can bring inspiration and hope to others. At the heart of our ministry is the goal of providing a voice to Christians suffering from mental health issues. And then it goes on to say, of course, that we do not provide professional resources. We are not an official support group, and none of the content presented here should be used to form a diagnosis. Only medical professional can do those things. But what's beautiful is that you're focusing on the inspiration and focusing on the brokenness, right? I missed that one line there. This community was founded on the premise that God loves you in your brokenness. He is always there to offer his peace and joy. Although this is a mainly Catholic Christian site, all are welcome here to share and express their opinions. And so that this is such a beautiful ministry, because you are really actually ministering through this work. Through presenting the blogs and the testimonies and inspirational hope to others that you give. You're really doing ministry and entering into people's lives when they need it and where they need it most. Again, if you need professional help, everybody is going to tell you, including us, to get professional help. But man, we all need that food along the journey. We all need the food along the journey, and that's really what strikes me so beautifully about this blog.
Oh, well, thanks very much. Yeah, but to hit on what you said earlier, yes, only a professional can make a mental health diagnosis. Please do not let anyone else tell you otherwise. If you need medication, take it as prescribed. If you need counseling or actual therapy, please go to it. Use every advantage that God has given you, because God has put those people at your beck and call, so to speak, for a reason. If you need it, go to it. I would be a much different person today if I did not have my therapist and my medication regimen. I probably wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you rationally without it. So it's definitely want to stress that to your listeners.
Thank you so much. You are really amazing. And it's all about getting out of the darkness and going toward the light, which is Christ, which is our faith. And it's so beautiful to hear that your Catholic faith has brought so much healing into your life. And then you're able to help other people. Because, I do say, just like I said kind of a little while ago, I do think all of us are faced with choices every single day about really believing that God is with us, really believing that he cares, really believing that goodness is better than evil, right? So I think that's really what you're all about and what your blog is all about. So I wondered if somebody's listening who is kind of going through some dark times. We're coming out of this pandemic, I hope soon. I don't know, right? And I know you don't know either. And maybe that's led people into kind of a not a great place. Do you have any words of advice to them who may be people of faith and thinking, you know what, I pray all the time, I try real hard, but you know what, God's not doing anything? Would you have any words of advice to them?
Well, I can tell them that God is indeed moving in their lives, and God does answer prayer, even if it's not necessarily the answer that you're looking for at the time. And God moves in his own time and his own place, and your prayers will be answered in one way or another. If you're in a dark place because of the pandemic, yeah, that's it's very much understandable. Reach out to somebody if you need to. Um, we're all in this together. Um, a lot of us are in a dark place because of the pandemic, but if there are plenty of opportunities, plenty of resources at your disposal. If you really need to talk to somebody, go. Even if it's something simple as getting together with some friends offline, just being like, man, anything is better than just worrying and letting that feed off of each other and just going into that dark place. Just as the New Testament says, don't even give the devil a foothold. Not even just that little bitty bit. Just do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hear something like, I know we've all heard this, that whole power of positive thinking. And, I do believe some of that is true. I mean, we have to look at sort of that positive side, look at the sunlight and believe in something good. But the question is, who is that good? What is that good? And that's where our faith really comes in. I think you probably agree with me there, Brian. I see you nodding your head
Yeah.
on our Zoom call here.
Yeah, discernment is definitely important.
Yeah, yeah. So how about for parents too? You got a kid who's a teenager and you see those signs of, like you said, of darkness. What would be those next steps to that parent who's trying to say, you know what, my kid doesn't have any faith, doesn't go to church, doesn't pray, and is hanging out with all these people who are really not a good influence? What's next?
Personally, if I was in those shoes, I would go to a priest or spiritual director and get some advice, get some feedback first, and just try to intervene in the child's life. Try to be the light in their life, lead them away from all that. Try your best to say, I see this is a path you're going on. Can we talk about it? Where is this coming from? Try to understand the mindset, because like I said, it all starts up there with the, that is their reality, that this darkness they can't see past it or through it, and just try to see where things are coming from and try to see what you can do to dispel that particular mindset. Try to see what you can do to just break through that and say, if you're hurting, it's okay to hurt. If there's something you hate, let's talk about it. If there's something that I'm doing as a parent that's driving you away, let's talk about it. You have that again, I don't want to say responsibility as a parent, but you have that ability to be the driving force in that child's life and say, this is, I have to do something about this, or something very bad's going to happen to my child.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and what a beautiful way. Yeah, that's beautiful. So nice. So nicely said. And I think a lot of it that that maybe we go through in our lives too, I think, is asking questions. You know, verse and listening first, versus you know, being very harsh or judgmental. I think that goes with anybody, and maybe Brian, you can talk about this too, because I know your wife Ruth has really helped you through many of the dark times you've had, and so for support people that are around you, right? Like you just know that you can't do it without them, and the importance of being able to even give back to them on the road to healing is also important too. But those support people, how important is it for those and for that to be recognized as well?
It's darn near essential. Without, I tell people, because it's the absolute truth. Without Ruth, I would be lost, because she can explain things to me in a way that I understand them, and she's very loving. She's very tender, but she's also very, uh, how to say this. She can also put her foot down and she say, no, this is bad behavior coming from you, and it's going to stop. And I need that. I need to be told, that you're regressing to something that I don't want to be married to, and this is where not where we want to be. This is where we want to be. We talked about this, and I think I can't say everybody needs that, because everybody's story and personality are different, but I think everybody needs that one person that's willing to level with you and say, you know what, this isn't the way it should be. You're better than this, for lack of a better term, and we're going to move past this. We're going to do better. We're going to move to a place where we want to be.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you said, yeah, it's tender, it's loving, all of that great stuff, but it's also somebody who's real honest and is able to put their foot down and speak to you in an honest way, because we all need that. I think, that's really what love is about. It's not just all the fun stuff and all the happy stuff. It's being able to be very honest with someone in a kind way, but being very honest. Because, let's face it, and I'm sure that you who have been down an evil path in your life, as many of us have, that holding on to our faith isn't always an easy thing. When we see certain things happening inside of us and outside of us, right?
It's definitely a challenge.
A challenge, yes.
Yeah, I've had discussions on Facebook about this, that because I've had people ask me, how can you hold on to your faith when this is going on, and you talk to people that are not Christian, not believers, and you're friends with them. How can your faith hold through that? And my answer to them was, well, I've cultivated my faith, and I am at a place where, yes, I am a worthless sinner that's worthy of hell, but I have a Savior that says to me, I understand where you're coming from, but I've asked for you to come home, and you have, and you're doing what I'm asking you to do. And my job as a Catholic Christian is to not, because I had this discussion as well. We're not supposed to beat people over the head with the word by any means. We're supposed to cultivate that in the spirit of truth and love, and say, hey, if you want to talk about the faith, that's great. Because the angels in heaven throw a huge party whenever a sinner comes home, type thing. And I believe that with the fullness of my being. And one of these days, someone's going to take me up on my offer.
That's great. Hey, tell us again, as we're like 10 minutes out from the end, somebody wants to read your blog. Again, repeat where they can find it.
Yeah, it's at thebeholdproject.com. It's excuse me. Haven't written any entries in it lately, but it will be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great. So, here we are kind of coming out of this pandemic. What's going to be happening for you next? Anything in the works for the next few months or the next year that you have ideas about?
Well, I actually had a seed that was planted in me over the course of the pandemic. There's a challenge going around on Facebook called the Denounce White Supremacy Challenge, that came out of the debate. I'm not going to touch that particular item with a 10-foot pole. This is not a political forum, but I had certain people that came on there and in the spirit of saying that they were full of God and just berating and being not nice to people and being uncharitable. And I said, well, something about this isn't right. So I am proposing a new challenge called the Swords to Plowshares Challenge. It is the promise not to beat people over the head with the good book, and instead to be talking about God in the spirit of love and truth, because that's what we're called to do, love one another. So I might be writing a few blog entries about that, because that's a subject I feel strongly about. Because I think if somebody told me back in the day that, oh, well, you can't come back out from what you're doing. You're going to hell, blah. I would be living a very different path than what I would be right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a great challenge. I mean, it's a great challenge for everybody to begin, looking at right now in their lives because, we have to have compassion. We have to have compassion and we have to have charity in everything we do. Complete charity and love in everything we do. And as you're right, taking a catechism or a Bible. I mean, we say this on the program all the time, right? This is not about throwing a catechism, at 100 miles an hour at you. This is not what we're doing. And I'm glad to see that you recognize that as well, because yes, we believe, in the beauty and truth of everything that the Catholic Church teaches. But we also recognize that there is a time, there is a place, there is a way to reveal that truth that is unique to almost every situation. And it is not tearing down people. It is building up people. And so I commend you. I'll take you up on your challenge whenever you issue it. I think it's a great challenge. I remember that ice bucket challenge. As long as it doesn't have to do anything with ice buckets, I'll be happy to.
Oh,
do
you're
it.
good.
All right, good.
Yeah, that's incredible, Brian. Thank you so much. And there's so many people who are dealing with, as you address so often in your writing, mental health challenges, right? I mean, everybody's has some kind of a challenge, whether it be something that's been diagnosed, or maybe it's just that negative attitude that every day you wake up and think, what's good about it, or the temptation to do things that are just against really what we believe in, just to get away from the suffering that we go through sometimes. So I just commend you on what you're doing, because you're making a great outreach to people who are away from their faith and who are being challenged. On that note, do you have any words of advice to people who might be listening right now and thinking, you know what, I am being challenged right now. I don't feel close to God and I just don't know what to do next. What kind of words of advice might you have for them who are feeling that sense of despair?
Well, all I can say is if you are being challenged in your faith, see it through the best you can. See what is holding you back from your faith and tackle it head on. If it's unforgiveness, do what you can to forgive that person. If it's hatred for a particular person or persons, try to see past that. If you're hurting inside, work to try to heal that hurt. God gave you every single opportunity and item at your disposal to try to move past what you're doing. Now, how can I put this? My therapist once told me, don't believe the old phrase, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. That's not true. God gives you more than what you can handle, so you reach out to him and reach out to other people and reach out to other resources and try to expand your horizons and try to expand you as a person. So go out, challenge yourself and go after what it is you're supposed to be going after, whatever that is. And promise you, whatever challenge God has given you, if he has given you a challenge, he's given you what you need to accomplish it, and you will be a better person for getting through it.
I love that. That's the first time I've ever heard that refute of God won't give you more than you can handle. Because you're right. I think sometimes God gives us so much, we think, oh my goodness, I can handle all this. I just can't. And so it's a good way to think about it, that I think God helps us to realize that we need him. And, don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes I think all of us want to try to do all the things we need to do for our lives, like say for work or home or with the kids, do it all on our own. Sometimes we need somebody to help. And I don't think that any of us should be ashamed to ask for it when we need it.
No, definitely not. That's usually the first step of any great change process, is to ask for help and ask for, hey, what could I be doing differently? What could I be doing better? Don't assume that everybody wants to help you, but they're just not. Most people, they're waiting for you to say, hey, I need the help. Please, I need something here. It's definitely the first step to a lot of great processes, I think.
I think you're so right, because I think about even like at church and things like that. When people find out that this person or this family needs something, it's because somebody spoke up. It's not because they noticed that this family was in need. It's because somebody from the family or a neighbor or someone said, hey, this family down the street, or this family at our church, or this person is having a hard time with something.
Yeah.
So people need to know that. I think that's a great point. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's excuse me. Yeah, a lot of great points made on all counts here. I'm very surprised this is the first time you've heard God doesn't give you more than you can handle be refuted. That's. But,
yeah, no.
I'm glad I could plant that seed in your brain, because that's I believe that to be a truth. God wants you to reach out and to grow as a person.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. You're right. I guess I've been sheltered a little bit on that one.
No, it's great. I think there's a lot of listeners out there that haven't heard that haven't heard that either. So it's a great truth to be spoken. But Brian, I want to thank you so much for your time, and we'll have to have you back on, because you just got so much wisdom. You're such a phenomenal person, and you have a wonderful ministry. Again, folks, please check out the beholdproject.com. But Brian, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story, and just sharing your ministry. It's a true joy and blessing.
Oh, well, thanks very much. Always a pleasure talking to you, Bill, and very lovely to meet you, Ann.
Oh, so same to you. And especially since, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've been social media friends for a while, and it's nice to finally be able to meet you and have this podcast. And Bill, I always thank you too. We have great podcasts every week. And just a reminder to our listeners that we're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. and every Thursday at 6 p.m. on Sowing Hope. And you can also subscribe to this podcast and listen to some of our other podcasts at Patchwork Heart Ministry on YouTube. And it's also on Podbean. And Bill, I believe it's also on Apple Podcasts and some of the other podcasting outlets.
Yep. Anywhere podcasts can be found, folks. There we are. All you need to do is search for Patchwork Heart Radio, and you will get our lineup of all of our podcasts on social media and whatnot. So please check it out. Also, don't hesitate to visit our website, patchworkheart.org, where you will be able to also get a copy of the Fearless Scriptural Rosary for these times that we're living in. But until next time, from all of us at Patchwork Heart Ministry, the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation, and Fiat Ministry Network, I'm Bill Snyder. Keep beating to your Catholic heart and sowing hope into broken hearts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Ann DeSantis 2.